The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Sherry Emily.
Hello, this is Rebel Medler.
Welcome to True Ghost Stories.
You are at the right place at the right time if you want to hear some amazing ghost stories and paranormal experiences. So grab yourself a drink, tuck yourself in, and get comfortable. Get ready to face your fears. We are True Ghost Stories, and we are calling all ghosts. Come out, come out, come out of your homes. Come out wherever you may roam. Hello, listeners. Hello, chatters. Hello, Chad.
Hello.
Welcome, Chad, our engineer. Howdy, howdy. Everybody can join the chat room if you go to the bottom right-hand side of your screen and sign in or be a stalker. Choose. Make your choice.
Thank you everyone for being here with us this evening. We here at True Ghost Stories would like to add a few things to our show. More questions, more answers, stories, research, and even a little bit of music once in a while. We would also like to have more callers, so don't be afraid to give us a call, 561-623-9429, and ask a question or ask our guest a question. The only way the world is going to know the truth is if we share the truth. We're not alone, and there are too many witnesses out there, so let's not be afraid to reveal it. I am Sherry Emily, producer, host of True Ghost Stories, and I am a witness.
We want you out there in the world to also become one of True Ghost Stories' witnesses. So don't be afraid to share with us. There are more people out there than you realize that have had some type of paranormal experience. They fear what society will say. Some make them feel like they're crazy or something's wrong with them. Well, here at True Ghost Stories, do not think we think like that, because we don't. We are open-minded. We care. Not only for this world, but for the spiritual world, too. Maybe through our journey, we can help a soul cross over or figure out why they're here and what they want from us. We are True Ghost Stories, and we think outside the box, can't you tell? I'm Rebel Madler, producer, host of True Ghost Stories, and I, too, am a witness. Tonight, we have a special guest in store for you. Let's give a warm welcome to our special guest, Robbie Thomas,
Yay!
psychic and spiritual counselor. Welcome, Robbie, to the show.
Thank you for having me. What an intro.
Robbie Thomas is a psychic medium spiritual counselor helping internationally families and police fight against crime while bringing solace to those who need it. Over many years of assisting in many murder missing persons cases, Robbie has been able to give great details to these devastating crimes or happenings, which have led to finding lost people, arrests being made in murder cases, and bringing closures to families who desperately need it. Welcome, Robbie, and thank you for being here. How you doing?
Oh, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me on your great show. I'm fine, and I hope you're doing well.
Well, I'm doing great, but we want to know all about you.
Tell us a bit about yourself, Robbie. What we haven't told everybody already.
Yes, I am a man in a house of estrogen. A lot of women live in this house. I haven't personally given birth to all of them, but my wife has.
Love.
Yes, So I am owned, and I have my own little corner. I'm a husband and father first and foremost. An author. I work with police and families, as you introduced in the program here in the start, doing psychic profiling, and also have the paranormal aspect, what we're going to get into the movies and writing about the paranormal and the afterlife, and I've been in that for a couple decades now.
Wow. Can you think back, what was your first experience? What put you on this path in life?
Yeah, it stems from a lot. And growing up, I would say paranormal. I like to use that term. And being such a young age, knowing difference, being visited from the other side, speaking of the other side and angels, and talking about, at one point in my life, I was around 3 or 4, right up until a late age of teenage years. I used to ask my mother, I felt like there was another part of me out there, or something was wrong, and I would say, either I'm adopted or I have a sister out there. There's something wrong. And I already had a sister. And, all I kept getting was, Ron, that's my dad's name. My mom would say, he's doing it again. And my father would say, get in here, leave your mother alone. And sure enough, in 1994, when my mother passed away, my family pulled me aside and they presented this information to me where my mother in the early 60s gave birth to another child. And upon doing so, the Catholic Church, if you were an unwed mother at the time, they would take the baby away from you and adopt the baby out. Well, come all these years, fast forward, and here I was right, and Fox did a big special on that, and it was pretty amazing going back and validating everything from age 3 and 4 right up till I was about 24 when she passed away.
Wow, that's amazing.
Did you find your sister? I have to ask that question.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We met, beautiful meeting. She lives out west in Canada, spitting image of my mother. And it was amazing because right there I knew, as they explained to me, she left me a gift. And that gift was a little bit of her in my sister Mary. It was amazing.
That's such a touching story. It truly is.
That's amazing. The Catholic Church took her and named her Mary when they adopted her out to other people because they did that. That's just, I'm glad they've reformed since back then because that's just terrible.
That's just very touching. Well, I'm glad that you two are back together and now you can spend the rest of your lives together.
Yes.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your, what you do paranormal-wise, what you do to help others?
Yeah, my very first television program was I was on a 1-hour special in 2004. I wrote my first book called A Link to Heaven, Chats with the Other Side in 2002, 2003, and it was released in the early part of 2004. And this was conversations and little anecdotes from people from the early mid-90s to the late 90s. I had a website where people around the world would come. And at one point, we got up to a little over 10,000 members in this site. I took their stories, what I read of them through the other side, and put this in this book so it would be like the reassurance of the other side. So what took place after that was a program that got a hold of me and asked me to come do a 1-hour special. And it was syndicated, satellites, cable network. It reached into the States and in part of Canada, which was fantastic in 2004. And from there, I got really heavy into the paranormal aspect of it. So it's been a decade, really, really heavy. And then prior to that, I went through to be a police officer 10 years prior to that. And that's when my very first encounter, if you will, with a murder.
A murder?
A murderer.
You didn't see it firsthand happen. You saw it happen after the fact?
Well, what happened was I was standing in a parking lot speaking with my friend who was the superintendent, if you will, or manager of the building. And over his shoulder was an individual that was walking across the parking lot. And I glanced over and I seen a black shroud around this individual. And to me, that's bad. There's something bad or evil about this individual. And then Greg turned and looked where I was looking and looked back to me and he said, "Oh, that's Jesse. Would you like to go meet him?" And so we went up to Jesse's apartment, sat in there. And as we're sitting there, these questions, the line of questioning was coming through. You have to remember, I was going through to be a police officer as well. So a little tactful, if you will, and addressing certain issues. And then I was just seeing what was going on. So he decides to tell me to stand up. Now, if you can picture Eddie Van Halen, this kid looked like Eddie Van Halen, but a miniature 5-foot cutoff, and I'm not kidding you. It was a replica.
So that would make him Angus Young?
Yes, it would make him Angus Young. That's a good one. So, lo and behold, he's a little bit irate at what the line of questioning was, and he said to me, "Are you effing hot?" And I didn't understand what he meant. And so he lifts up my shirt. Then I understood what he meant. He was looking for a wire, and he starts patting me down, and he pushed me back down in the chair. And then he says, "You want to know?" And he says, "We were ripping off car stereos, and Thomas, another individual who's in jail now for murdering again, went across the way to the gas station where Mark was. And Mark moved from Quebec with his family to Ontario to start a new life. And this is a young gentleman in high school, going through high school, trying to make a little bit of money while attending school." And he said after they ripped off the car, they went over to the gas station, and Thomas pulled out a gun, and he says, "You should have seen him hopping like a rabbit." And he was holding the gun sideways, and he was going, "We were popping him." And then he grabbed me and put me to the door, and he goes, "And if you say anything, I'll kill you." And that's what he said to me. So then he pushed me out the door. Well, fear not, the first thing I did was go right to the police. And then they asked me to go back and befriend him a second time to wear a wire. And I said, "No, he made me. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that." And that's when the trial was going on. And little did I know a trial was going on with this individual. It just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And that's how I started my career of working with police and getting involved with murderers. And I sat 2 feet from a murderer. I don't expect everybody out there who assume they're psychic or what have you and go out and put your life on the line and in a dangerous situation like that. Please don't, because that's not the right way of doing things.
When you were a child, did you ever have any kind of experiences when you were a child? Did anything stem from that?
Yeah, there was a lot of different experiences as a child. When I was 12, my father moved into a home closer to a Catholic high school for me, so I wouldn't have to be bused. And we bought this home. There was a little fire inside. The gentleman died who lived in the home, and he had 3 best friends that lived across the street. There was Mr. Leach, there was Mr. Waters, and I forget the other gentleman's last name, but his first name was Bill. So there's 3 of them across the road, and they were good friends with the gentleman that lived in the home. And this gentleman kept visiting, like shadow people. People call them shadow people. One time during the summer, just as we finished renovating, it was a nice hot summer August night, and the curtains were open in my bedroom, and I can remember the moon shining in, so it was bright. I shut the light off and just climbed into bed, and I turned and looked, and there he was. He was standing right there, and he started walking towards me. I remember his brimmed hat, the overalls that he was wearing, his hands inside his chest, and you can see his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear what he was saying, because by that time, I started to freak out, and I'm screaming because it caught me off guard. Later, he visited again a couple more times, and then at one point explained to me that the 3 men across the road, their time was coming. And I remember Mr. Leach, he was a full-set man, really jolly. And he come down with cancer, and he crossed the street. He always used to come over and sit on the front porch and speak to my father. And he would cross the street, and I remember him holding his pants. And he was half the man he was. And he used to kid around and say, "Look, I lost half of me," and his pants. And he would sit there. And during the end of summer. Well, he passed away, and then shortly right after that, Mr. Waters had a heart attack and passed away, and then shortly right after that, Bill, his other friend, died in a hunting accident. So all 3 men died, just as he was told me. So that was the encounters that I was getting at age 12.
Wow. So what happens is that the spirits come to you and tell you what's happening? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, it's almost like live TV and seeing it for real. And, as we get into the Sallie House portion here, I'll explain again. There's a great segue into the actual movie itself and how spirit visited me. But that's how it is played to me. They come to me in that aspect. And going back even earlier as a child, there's one point when I was 3 years old, there was in the one show in 2004 that's on my website. There's a whole hour or half hour, whatever, program there. I'm explaining how I was walking alongside the townhome, and these two children were in the basement, and they overturned a gas can. And the gas ran to the pilot light of the hot water tank and exploded. Now, I'm only about 10 feet away from the window, and I remember the wall being blown out, the doors off its hinge, everything it was a mess, smoke pouring out. I remember being like pushed to the ground, coming up, not a scratch on me, and like these hands holding me. I looked up, and the lady of the home was screaming. She come to the door and looked out. She seen me. She stopped screaming. She seen what I seen, what was going on, and it was like silence. And then she continued, turned, and ran and started screaming again in the house. By then, I remember my mother coming over, taking a look at me, and there wasn't a scratch on me. There was nothing. I should have either been really badly hurt or, something from that explosion. And I remember looking down in that little window, a little cubby window that's in the ground there for the basement area, and their spirits just were gone. I seen them as a child. They were gone. So that was about age 3.
Wow, that's really young. Don't you think, Rebel?
Yeah, I was actually getting a visual. This little window, is it a round window?
Yeah, you know how they used to have little metal grates?
Like little portholes?
Yeah, and the window would be there, and it would be down like half under the ground, and then they would have these little old metal grates that were like shaped like a C, and then they would be against the wall. And
I saw it when you were describing it. That's why I asked if it was a little like round window. I saw it. It's like creepy. It's weird how it happens.
And that's your first experience ever at 3 years old. And you actually seen these children playing this day. What I don't understand is you can see them like they're people. You don't see through them.
Right. They're like people. My children, we live in a home that's very active, if you will. And at one point, we moved in this home 12 years ago, my little daughter, the middle daughter, would love to go into the older daughter's room and play with her makeup. And so Jessica was not home, and Mac was sneaking up there like Mac does, and she turned the corner, and then we heard the scream, and then she come down the one flight of stairs, but she hit the first step at the top and missed all the rest of them, and you could hear her bang, and she get up and she's running, and she missed the second step or flight of stairs coming down. You hear her bang, 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 and she runs right into the living room and grabs onto me, and then she's saying, the little boy. So she's seen the apparition of the little boy straight up there. And I catch him in my eye every once in a while running through the house. We have a lot of activity in this home, and it's amazing. So my children see just as well.
So your children have the gift as well?
Yes, they do.
Amazing. And are you bothered by this at all?
You know what? Growing up, I was. And I wrote about it again. I'm just referencing back into the first book, how my peer section as a teenager or as a young adolescent, if they ever found out, I'd be crushed, because they would have shunned me. They would do what normal society would have done back then.
There's nothing normal about society.
Yeah, it's strange as it is. But it's more acceptant as a role now. Fighting tooth and comb over 20 years of working with police and families. And it's amazing in the beginning where, police used to, are you really going to use a psychic? And, they didn't really go for that. And here we are 15 years into it after the first 5 years, and they're calling me, and we're doing cases, and they're getting information, and, families were talking back and forth, and, it's more prevalent now.
And speaking of cases, why don't you tell us, which everybody's been wanting to hear for the past 20 minutes, about the Sallie House.
Yes, the Sallie House. The original movie of the Sallie House was to be introduced and filmed in 2006. I did a movie called Dead Whisper in 2005. The producer, along with Tom Naughton from the Discovery Channel, a few other people, Michael Esposito, who's been in with me in 2 movies, were all going down to the Sallie House in 2006. It was about a week, maybe a little less, prior to leaving to Kansas, and I got a visit from Spirit right in my bedroom, right up just as we got into bed. And she said, no, do not go. And she explained thoroughly what was going to happen with each individual that were going to go down to the Sallie House. And the next day I was flabbergasted, and I'm telling my wife, I'm going, I can't go. I'm not going to go against what I was just seeing and what you just heard. And she's just, you got to tell the producer. So I call him up and I said, this is why I'm not going. And he was livid. And I said, you're going to be doing this to this person, and this is what's going to happen, and they're going to hate you, and this is what's going to happen. There's going to be a big disruption in what's going on. This person's going to do that. And it's all played on ego and everything was going to happen. I stayed home. I got one final phone call. It was the day of leaving. Everybody was leaving. And it was more or less, if you're not on the plane, we're never going to work with you again, and yada, yada, yada. And I held to my ground. Sure enough, on the Sunday, this was a Friday that I got that call. On a Sunday, all the filming was kiboshed. It was a complete null and void. I get the one producer saying, okay, Mr. Psychic, on my tape recorder, the phone tape, you were right, and this is what happened. And then I started talking to, really good integral individuals who went down there, like Michael McDowell from the Indiana Ghost Trackers. He was floored. He wasn't even allowed on the property practically. And
Did you just want to say, I told you so?
Oh, yeah, I did. I did over and over and over. So now we come from all the mess that went on, and it wasn't really I told you so. It was the woman who visited me to say, this is what's going to happen. I decided to go on tour in 2007. New Orleans, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan.
New Orleans!
Yes,
Shout
New
out.
Orleans. And we got some shout out to New Orleans. People are tuning in, by the way. So, it's great. And Michael Esposito says, why don't you make Kansas one of your stops? And I said, sure, sounds great. He says, we'll go to the Sallie House, and you have a few people. So it was a real quick put together. And as we did, people flew in from Canada, Las Vegas, all over the States, and the house was packed. And it was amazing. These beautiful people showed up, and it was a great time, and everybody got touched by spirit. But the phenomenal part about this was, when we pulled in, I brought an actor friend of mine, Jamie Routley, and he came into Kansas with me. We sat on the front porch of the Sallie House. And Michael turns to me and goes, do you know what day this is? And I said, yeah, I think it's like September 15, something like that. He goes, it's the exact day you should have been here last year to film this. It was the exact same day a year later. And here we were. Everything felt right. This one producer got a hold of me while we were down there, and he says, I want to film only 10 minutes of you in the Sallie House, just to make a little blurb, and then I want to do another movie with you later on. And I agreed. But it turned out to be the full-length movie. He couldn't stop filming, and everything that happened, as you've seen in the movie, was priceless. And it just come together as it should have. People just loved being there.
Well, for the people out there that haven't seen the movie, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what happened?
Yes. When we arrived, and Finney, who was the doctor, came from Ireland. His family settled into the Atchison area of Kansas. Now, we did a lot of research a few years prior to 1906 and a few years after. And there was no Sallie that was on any formal paper or any documentation to be found in or around a historic part of paperwork at all in that area. So as we're going along doing this movie, and I'm getting introduced to different spirits in the home, I turned to Michael and I said, this is the House of Spirits. It's, I know we dubbed it, or somebody's dubbed it the Sallie House, but there's really no Sallie addressed or coming through to here. And I said, it's really different because there's a lot of different types of people that are interacting here and what's going on, and everybody's seeing things. The cameramen are hearing things move on the table. One point we were filming and we were checking back the playback, and we heard snap slide on the table. We turned and looked behind us in the dining room, and everything that was on the right side of the table, we assumed was on the right side of the table. And then we turned back to look at the playback. We heard snap slide. Well, look, everything was on the right side, was now on the left side. It was pretty amazing. The radio that was in there, the one actor, Jamie Rowley, got a little upset because it was playing. He had a headache, and he unplugged it, and it was still playing. And then he ended up taking it apart to see if there was any batteries or what have you. But there was nothing in there. And then finally it died. It was like a short period of time, maybe a minute or so, but it died. He stood up on, now Jamie, being he, stood up on a stool because we're up on the top floor and we kept hearing noise up in the attic area. And he wanted to just reach up in the attic and take a picture of a camera and snap a shot. And as he was doing that, I yell out, "Watch out, Finney's going to get you." And he turned and looked at me and he gave me an expletive and he said, "Stop saying that." And he snapped a shot. Little did he know, when he pulled his hand down and the top door shut, he blew up and superimposed the picture. There was a little boy's face right there, and it was a beautiful snapshot. It was amazing, capturing that, and everybody freaked out that was there watching this photograph. And I'll take you back to the night before. Finney owned a lot of different homes in and around Atchison. We stayed at the very first home he built. The producer owns it. It was down the street from the Sallie House. And we're sitting there. I brought my oldest daughter. And Jamie went upstairs. We kept hearing click, 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 click. And my daughter says, "Look over there, Dad." And we stayed in the one master bedroom. And I looked over and I said, "Look at the lights going off and on." And she goes, "Yeah." And you could see every time it snapped off, the shadow of an individual in there. And so we're both watching this, and then it stopped. And so then we're finally talking, and it's very active. And so we get to sleep. The next morning, they had the news team from Missouri come up, I believe it was, and we had a news team from St. Joseph's in that area, whatever, come up. And we're waiting for Jamie to come down. And we got the crew, the film crew, people are piling up outside and, coming from all over to visit us. And Jamie's still not there. So I go and knock on the door. His door's locked. And then finally comes down. He's white as a ghost. And he goes to me, "You did a trick on me, Len." I said, "I didn't do a trick on you. How could I do a trick? Your door was locked." He says, "You come and tucked me in so tight to my bed last night, I couldn't move." And nobody could get into his room. He was all super tucked into his bed. It was amazing, the things that were going on in those homes. It was fascinating. And then to go ahead and start filming, and then the producer says to me, "Let's do something that's never been done before, never been on TV. Everybody's done, running around EVP recorders and everything." And I looked out the truck, and he has this Great Dane. And no one's ever used a dog through a thorough investigation ever before that's been on TV or movies. And I said to him, "Let me steal your dog, and I'll turn it into a Chihuahua." And he laughed because it was a Great Dane. It was a huge... Andy was a beautiful dog, beautiful, friendly dog. And I never seen a dog so big, like a horse. So he said, "Sure." And everybody at the breakfast table, the news team and everybody were just, laughing because they thought this was going to be comical. Well, sure enough, we brought the dog in, and through the movie, you see, I'm inviting him to come into this big walk-in closet. It's big. And the dog walks up to go in there, and then he starts huffing and puffing, and he sees what I was talking about a little boy being chained in there. And the dog starts to get a little unfurled and upset because of what was going on. He knew what was going on. But this happened throughout the whole time. And at one point, the poor dog made a beeline for the front door, sat there, was moaning and scratching at the door. So we went down, and the producer opened the door. The dog ran and jumped into the cab of his truck and never left. So he was startled, and it was proof. Now, he was never hurt. He was just startled, seeing what I was seeing and what we were encountering. It just added proof that there was a lot going on in that house.
Now, can I ask you a question on that?
Absolutely.
Why would the animal fear it unless there's something not right
Yeah, you know, when I was explaining, it's a great question. And when I was explaining the fact of the punishment, the individual little boy was into the closet, and for being tied to the pole that was in there, I think the dog experienced the expression of that behavior, and therefore took that it was bad and demeaning to the little boy, and Finney's actual presence was in the home, and you can hear people talking over top of me in the basement when I was there. You know, he's the devil, and you know, because what they did was they made this circle apparently, and used to use rocks and put it in the front, and they would inside the circle, and they would assume that would keep the father away, and you know, to please him, to keep him away, they'd be down the basement. And I thought the dog was picking up on a lot of the emotions that were running in that house.
Do you have anything you'd like to ask him, Robin?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm visualizing, and this is hard for me because when people talk, I actually see things, and I'm seeing this dog. I think the dog was reacting to the child there because I think the child was able to convey the feelings to the dog.
Well, that's what, we were explaining about how the spirit, or the child, as you will, and then to further along that, when I explained earlier, where Jamie was up in the attic and he snapped the picture, and he had the boy's face, that little boy was following us all through the place. It was amazing how different individuals would encounter and be touched during that time. It's on the film. People, how they're expressing themselves. You know, I know a lot of people try to exaggerate or emphasize on the evil importance of getting a scare out. But at that time, when everybody did come down, I took everybody to St. Francis. It's a little community hall type thing. And I sat with them for, about a day, explaining about spirit, how it moves, how to render yourself in a pleasant manner, how to approach properly. Therefore, you don't run into a place and try to invoke them, because they already evoked you. They already know that you're coming. You don't need to put pressure upon them or yourself or try to provoke anything.
Excuse me.
Yes.
How do you know you're coming? Like, say I'm going on a hunt. Say I scheduled a hunt for next month to go to a certain place. They already know I'm going to be there?
Well, you see your house. You have walls in your home, and your neighbor can't hear you. Spirit has no walls. Spirit has no intention of putting up walls. They're very free will. The notion of you wanting to go someplace and to encounter or to have an interlude, if you will, with any spirit at that time, they're putting the notion into you that they know you're coming. So it's all going to be as a mutual bond as you go to places.
Okay, now I have one more question. Now, say you go on a hunt, knowing that there's been paranormal activity going on there, and you go there yourself for 2 days and nothing happens.
Yeah, people always ask me, why can't I speak to my mother? She's passed, but my sister is getting visitations from my mother. Why is my dad gone and my brother gets to see him in his dreams, and I having nothing for months, and I don't understand it. If you're trying too hard to just win a trophy, to go there to prove a point that they're not going to come to you. It's like you wanting to bug me and get me on your show all the time, or say come out to coffee, or I'm going to get tired and I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to put you on hold. And then an individual who's going there, who has an open heart, an open soul, they know who to communicate with. And it's also, on the other hand, too, some people are more acceptant, if you will, at doing this because their souls can communicate on a level where someone else wouldn't be able to. And if something happened that they were shown a spirit, they would freak. And I've been in places where people have stood and we've seen movement, we've seen shadows, we've seen people, and no one freaks out. And then on the other hand, there's two people to the left of us, they're screaming and they're running through. And they can't handle it. So spirit knows, and that's how they move.
So they know if you're in fear of them.
It's not so much in fear as, I've watched videos of people going through places, calling them names and swearing at people, and you have to understand there are people on the other side. I know we give them terms of ghost and spirit and what have you. There are people on the other side, just as we are here. We just move on.
Because dimensions is what you're saying?
Yes, we have different dimensions and different planes. Absolutely.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. Picture a doorway. Walking through the doorway, you become part of that other room or that atmosphere in that area. It's the same thing as if you were spirit and in the communication on a different plane. It's that easy to move through. If I could give you part of me to see how this works, where I'll give you an example, was there was a murder in Kentucky, and they sent me a picture one day. It was the day before. It was in 2007, just as we did this movie just after. And I'm thousands of miles away from Kentucky, and I'm looking at this boy, and I just went to that plane, that dimension, and that boy gave me the murderer's name, where his body was, and where the description of the truck, the vehicle, everything. And sure enough, that man's on death row. That's how spirit moves and how open I am to this, where some people wouldn't be so open to it, or it would be, like you explained, the fear. It could be a magnetism of fear. It could be the part where they want it so bad. And I always explain to people, EVPs and pictures, and for you to go on these so-called ghost hunts is, trophy hunting is not proper. It's not the right way of doing proper encounters or interludes with spirit. They call them paranormal investigations, but they're encounters with the other side.
So you don't agree with paranormal investigation then?
I agree with it. The way that some people go about it, I don't agree with it. I absolutely don't agree about it.
What if it's educational and trying to find answers?
There's difference between educating oneself and educating oneself only to, I'm going out on a Friday night, listen to this EVP and blast it all over Facebook, or, throw it on your website, and you're not taking the time to understand a proper investigation. The Sallie House. Michael Esposito has been investigating that for a decade or more. When people go for an investigation, it's not one night or a 2-night investigation. When we should do investigations, we should do things on a long-term basis, debunk things, as people call it, debunk, but take terminologies and turn them around and start to figure out what is right for an investigation, a process of elimination. I've worked with a lot of different scientists who have developed a lot of technologies. One individual was the head of IBM, and he invented ordnance that are used over in Iraq and in Afghanistan by the U.S. Army. He works with Homeland Security. Now, we're talking very up there scientists, not, some guys that go around a little bit in the paranormal field. And when he brought his instrumentations down and we went to a place, there were certain individuals I brought with us to this one location, and he had this instrumentation throughout the home. And we didn't understand why it typed one letter and another letter, and then in another room, it typed one letter and another. Then we started figuring out RT was Robbie Thomas. The next one was DH was Don Hutchison. And then it pertained to all the different people that were there. Pretty amazing. Still working on that to get the communication through the typing part of it. And, I look at that, the process of elimination, and the proper way of investigating. I just don't like some of the theories and some of the ways that people, this is my own perception of what, and my own opinion. But I've seen something that's not even proper for investigation.
Well, we appreciate you sharing this with us and being real and being honest. I do have one more question I'd like to ask you, if I may. Do you think that it's possible that a house calls people to live in it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example, a personal example. My wife and I went out of the house hunting. We thought, forget it, we're not going to buy a house, and we went for a car ride. And we never really come down this area of my town, and it's a nice area. And we went, wow, look at that beautiful home, and it's for sale. So we inquired about it because it was just like we were drawn to it. And the realtor said to us, they just put it up today. And so, wow, what's the price? And we couldn't believe the price for this area. So we said, okay, we put our bid in. She accepted it. Now, that night, we get a phone call from the realtor. And she says she's going to throw in the washer, dryer, the fridge, the stove. And okay, that's great. And we're really excited. And so the next day, we get a call by the realtor.
When are they going to tell you that 4 people died in this house and the blood still drips from the walls?
Yeah. And then she dropped the price. And then we couldn't believe it. So then we signed, and the realtor gave us 1% cash back on the price of the home. So, I mean, we made out like bandits on this house, right? Then come to find out that her mom and dad stayed here with her through the whole renovation. It's the oldest farm home in the area. It was the very first home in this area. And they renovated it, made it very modern, everywhere. Well, her mom and dad said after a year of being here renovating that they're going to go on a vacation. And they went, but 3 days into their vacation, they were hit by a semi-truck and killed. Gina, I wrote about this in Signs from Heaven, one of my books. And Gina couldn't bear to live here no more. So she put it up for sale. We bought it. And we've caught on film pictures of a lady. And I've talked to Gina. Gina drives down this street to this day. It's been 12 years now. And she parks her car on the outside of the house. And she won't come to the home. I know she doesn't want to bother us. And I've told her to come. But she stands there. And she just stares at the house for a little bit. And then she goes. This was her home. This is where her mom and dad were. And it was like we were drawn here for a reason. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
So where can people get your books and get this movie you spoke of?
Yeah, you can go on YouTube. It's free. Go to YouTube, Sallie House. You can watch it for free. And also, you can go to Amazon or any of your bookstores. Look up all my titles. I got my 9th book coming out this year. You can take a look at them, on Amazon. And everybody asks me what's your favorite. I think they're all good. They're all my favorites, really.
We thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here with us this evening and sharing tonight.
Oh, man, it's time to go. That sucks. Time just flies when you're having fun.
No.
I just can't get enough.
You, because it's that time.
It is. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I mean, I am intrigued by all your stories, and like you said, it's like seeing a movie play in your head. You had me, and everything you told me gave me glimpses of your visions of what you went through. Thank you for not making them scary. But okay. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Actually, we had someone in the chat rooms worried about having nightmares tonight.
Oh, no.
That's what he said. Joe Bonadonna. He says he's got to go to sleep, and he's worried about having nightmares.
Don't worry, Joe. We'll keep them away from you. You'll have sweet dreams. Anyway, Robbie, thank you for being here with us. It was awesome.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Have a good night, Robbie.
Good night, guys.
Thank you again.
Make sure to tune in to W4CY True Ghost Stories every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out The Adventures of Pipe Man. Oh, we're going to do some changes on that. So check your local listings or find out when. You can't get enough of me? Tune in to In Your Face Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Check out FML, that's Friends Music Life, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Also on our sister stations, we have Karma Kitty on W4WN, the Women for Women Network, Wednesdays at 9 and 10, and our other sister station, W4CS, the Cancer Support Network. Check out shows with Joni Aldridge about cancer and survival. Also, give us a visit at facebook.com/TrueGhostStories2013 and tweet us at twitter.com/TGSW4CY.
Do you ever feel like you're not alone?
Do you ever feel like someone or something is near you?
Have you felt touched or something has brushed up against you? Do you hear voices?
Do you have vivid dreams of dead loved ones? Do you see shadow people?
Who are they? What are they?
An angel or demon?
Or just someone reaching out? We believe someone or something is reaching out. We want to tell the world the truth. Our experiences are not a figment of our imaginations. There are things that walk the earth that is unknown to us. We want to find out what it is. We want to share it with all of you, and so do they. We want to tell our stories and their stories. We are True Ghost Stories.
Tune in next Monday night. We have great guests in store for you. Listen in to the horrifically talented duo of
Sherry Emily
and Rebel Medler on W4CY.com for a frightfully entertaining hour of the best True Ghost Stories ever heard. Until then,
happy ghost
happy ghost hunting.
Very troubled soul, wondering when the end will come. Will he take it slow? Sitting there in silence, he knows the end is near. Felt the raven's threatening cry. The way is very clear. Did he take the easy path down this road of life? Done his share of losing faith, but nothing else looked right. Time catches up with you, if only in your dreams. Wake up with a coin in hand and hear the ravens scream. Hear the shadows of the night. You can run, you can hide. Hear the shadows of the night. You can lose, you can lose your life. Somewhere in another place, so many miles apart, he runs away from what's to come and cries out with his heart, following that highway, not sure of where to go, looking up ahead of him. He sees the joining road. He doesn't see the stop sign there. No time to turn away. The raven's perched up on that wreck. Yeah, I warn you of this day. In the shadows of the night, you can run, you can hide. In the shadows of the night, there's no time, no time you can buy. No. Kicking and screaming, stretching and bleeding just to stay alive. Dealing and stealing, cheating and dealing, no place to lie. They got up bleeding, barely just breathe, at the end of the road is near. The end of the road is near. Tell me, what do you feel?